Good morning, everybody. My name is Faith Dukes. I am the Director of STEM Education and Workforce Programs here at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Welcome to our STEM Career and Research Talk series for this summer. We are so excited to have you be a part of these discussions we will have over the next few weeks. The first discussion of this summer series will be making the most of your internship. This is an opportunity for you to learn about how, again, to make the most of your summer opportunity, the program that you may be in, and anything that you may think of going forward and thinking about how you make the most of the relationships you're building this summer. On today's panel, we will have Merritt Bessison, who is the Assistant Director of the Cosmos Program at UC San Diego, Bhavani Bindiganaville, who is the Associate Director for the TRIO Education Programs at UC Berkeley, and Joanna Albala, who is the Manager of Science Education Programs at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. So I'll have them go ahead and start their cameras, and we're going to get started with today's discussion. So thank you all for being here, and I'll have them, Joanna and Merritt, turn on their cameras. Thank you so much. To get started with today's discussion, we actually want to just hear a little bit more about you. So I'll ask you all each to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to the position you are today, and then a little bit about the program that you are leading. So Joanna, and then Merritt, and then Bhavani, if you could in that order, proceed to talk to us today about your backgrounds and the programs you work with.
Well, thank you, Faith. Thank you for the kind invitation to join the panel today. I'm Dr. Joanna Albala. I'm the Science Education Manager at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. I have a BA in biology from Bucknell University and a master's and PhD in molecular biology from a pathology department from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, New York. My career path is I came to Lawrence Livermore as a postdoc over 30 years ago and joined the biology program, which was beginning their efforts to understand the human genome as part of the Human Genome Project that was sponsored by the Department of Energy. I then moved on from my postdoc to run a laboratory here at Lawrence Livermore for several years. I discovered 2 genes that were involved in breast cancer and moved on after the Genome Project was completed here to study those genes at UC Davis. I spent 5 years at UC Davis and then took my career to the University of the Pacific, where I was the Director of Research and Strategic Partnerships for the College of the Pacific. I ran a laboratory and taught. And then about 12 years ago, I was recruited to come back to the laboratory as a science education program manager, which has been very fulfilling because I know the science of the lab, the culture of the lab, and was able to turn my focus to outreach and education. I run several programs for high school students and teachers. We're in the local community, and I'm lucky enough to partner with my colleagues like Faith, who does similar work at Berkeley.
Thank you, Joanna, and Merritt, on to you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Merritt Bessison. I'm the Assistant Director for the Cosmos Program, UC San Diego. A little bit about my background. I was actually a language arts teacher out of college. I went to college in Wisconsin and then decided to continue to work in student affairs after that rather than continue to teach at the high school level. So I got my master's degree in human development from St. Mary's University, and then have worked at a series of universities in student affairs. Most recently, San Diego State University. I was the campus ombudsperson for almost 10 years. So I did a lot of conflict resolution, mediation, working with faculty and students. And then the Cosmos opportunity came up, and it really is kind of a blend of working with high school students, which is part of my background. Faculty. I have 22 faculty who work with the program and teach our clusters. And then, administration and kind of working with parents and student staff and all of that. So it's really been a great journey. Cosmos is a 4-week residential program that's going to start in about 2 weeks at 5 UC campuses. And we're getting excited to welcome this year's cohort of students. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bhavani. Thank you so much, Faith, for the introduction and the invite. I currently serve as the Associate Director for the TRIO Talent Search Program, and I've actually been working in college access for a few years now. It actually started when I was a Berkeley student myself. I was a college advisor for Berkeley High, and I've kind of just been going with it since then. And I studied anthropology and ethnic studies at Berkeley and then got my master's in higher ed at University of Michigan. And I am just excited to talk about, my experiences that I've had working with students and helping them apply to internships.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to invite our students in the audience to also input their questions in the chat. We will definitely get to them over the course of this conversation. And I'm actually going to start with a question that most of the students and interns here in the audience are just starting out their research laboratory appointment or their summer program. So are there specific steps that a student should take within the first few weeks that will ensure that they have success in the program or laboratory that they're participating in? So I'll start back with Bhavani and then we'll do Merritt and Joanna. So backwards in terms of opening that question up.
Great, thank you. I think one of the biggest things to remember when you are starting a new STEM program is to not put pressure on yourself to really understand the scope of things as soon as you start, and that really realizing that it is going to be a new experience. And so there's just going to be a lot of learning happening and just kind of getting yourself comfortable with that. But actual stepwise, I think it's also important to go into the program knowing what you want out of it, especially because a lot of times you might be given a varied number of responsibilities. And so it's just important to kind of keep close why you want to do this and what you want to make sure you're leaving here with, especially as you're working on all the different things. And also relationships are super important. So just really being intentional about building relationships with your peers, with the staff members. There's just going to be a lot to learn from each other and with the folks around you.
I would echo that piece about relationship building. Here at Cosmos, students form a really tight cohort and often stay in touch for years after the program and continue to help each other as they enter various colleges. They sometimes travel together to new experiences beyond Cosmos. And so I just encourage folks to connect and stay in touch. But initially, the first few weeks, I think it's important to ask questions. If you're feeling lost, there's a chance someone else is too. So don't let yourself be afraid to ask any questions and stay on top of the information as you're beginning to learn.
Well, I think I would echo what's already been said. I think it is really important to ask questions, especially because you might not be familiar with the work that you're doing or have done it before. And there's no wrong answers, right? It's a learning environment. So you really want to take advantage of the people around you and their knowledge. So don't be afraid to ask questions before you do something, because it's always better to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable or feel a little bit more vulnerable, but get the right answer and do the right thing, especially if you're in a laboratory situation. Also, to learn about the environment that you're in, if they offer activities or programs or videos about the lab you're working in, or the larger environment. Like, for example, what is Berkeley? What is Livermore? That kind, what is UC Davis? To understand that community, that really helps give context to what you're doing in your own project.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for just emphasizing questions and communication, super important, and taking in all the information. Internships are very short time. They can be, or programs can be from 4 weeks all the way to 10 weeks. That's still a very short amount of time. How do you manage expectations for with your mentor, your project that you've been designed or assigned? What advice would you give to a student who is getting these tasks? How do you think they should go about managing that? And again, have you seen students make mistakes earlier on? How would you guide them through a mistake that they might make in the early period of their program. So two questions in there kind of. One, how do you stay on track? And two, how do you correct a mistake or advice for correcting a mistake? And Mary, I'm going to start with you for that one, and then Joanna, and then Bhavani.
I think staying on track means just being very present as instructions are being given out, as information is being relayed. And then if there's something that you missed, or sometimes I see where students think they have it and make assumptions, and then all of a sudden feel really behind and struggle to get out of that. So it's really about making lists, making sure that you are following kind of whatever's being outlined, whatever assignments you have or information is being outlined. And if you are feeling like you're not getting something or that you might be missing something, double checking with your peers. That's often what we do in Cosmos. It's all project-based learning. So you have a chance to have other people with you who are your peers that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and make sure that you're understanding.
So I think it's also important to make sure that you have established from the beginning regular meetings with your mentor and ask your mentor, are we meeting every Monday morning? Are we meeting every Friday afternoon? Like Faith said, these internships go very quickly, and there's often trainings, there's often seminars, there's things like you're doing today, and you do want to be able to know that you're meeting the expectation that the mentor has set up with you. I think the second part of the question is, we all make mistakes. That's the journey of life. And so we sort of just have to own them, and don't be afraid. It's always better to just say, wow, I think I did pipette too much into that microcentrifuge tube, or I think I wrote that down wrong, because it gives clarity of why things have the outcome that they have. So I just think, like Merritt said, being really present, great communication, like Faith said, and you have to know that you're not going to have all the answers, because you're working with people who have years of experience in that field, and lean into also maybe other students in the lab, postdocs, graduate students, and don't be afraid to get help if you need it.
I really want to echo a word that's been used a lot, but communication. I think communication really is key. It's something that beyond your internships, it's just something that's going to be a part of life. And I also want to highlight, I think Joanna just mentioned this as well, but just consistent check-ins, and especially having introductory conversation, just to really be transparent about expectations on both ends. And then just checking in throughout the program, just making sure that, questions are being answered and the expectations that you all set at the beginning are being met. And something I want to highlight in my previous experience is, I know sometimes coming in as an intern, there can be not only an experience difference, but also age differences. And I have seen in the past, folks might not feel as comfortable really kind of honing in on that community that's already there. And so I really want to emphasize the importance of kind of taking up that space and, forming community with the staff members that are there, because the community that I've said community a bunch of times, but the community that you form is a really, really huge part of your internship experience, in addition to the actual work that you're doing. So try not to form that barrier between you both. You all are working together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the great advice. I want to do a little bit of a break in the advice time to actually give you all a chance to talk a little bit more about the programs that you manage that are out there. So if you could talk a little bit more about the science that's covered or the programs that you offer to students, this is the opportunity to kind of share that out, because of course, while some students in the audience are a part of the programs here at Berkeley Lab, they may be looking for something in the future, or, we may have folks in the audience who are looking for things in the coming year. So Joanna, I'll let you start off, and then Bhavani, and then Merritt.
Awesome. Thanks, Faith. So Lawrence Livermore offers a variety of high school programs in the summer. The biggest one is probably our SAGE camp that several other laboratories also offer. It's a 1 week residential camp for students. We spend the day at the Lawrence Livermore Lab learning about science, doing small hands-on projects, and then in the evening, we reside at the Army Hotel at Camp Parks in Dublin. So it's a very secure facility because the laboratory, unlike Berkeley, doesn't have housing. So in that camp, it's really an overview to as much science that we can share with students in the time that we have. We also have a 3-day manufacturing workshop where students come for the day and they learn about our machining and manufacturing and apprentice program, as well as some engineering programs. And we do a little small project over the course of the week. And then we have our STEM with Phones workshop for high school students. And that is really fun, doing all sorts of different science using the sensors in your smartphone. And then the last is a 2-week immersive biotech summer experience where students learn how to do real world biotechnology and bioinformatics in a very intensive summer program that is really rewarding. And if you find a new plant gene that you may get out of this library that is given to us through our collaborators at Rutgers, you get to publish it in the NCBI, which is the national database for genomics. So those are the programs we run during the summer. And we also do Science on Saturday, which is a lecture series in February at Las Positas College to just learn more about the science about the lab, but not just a presentation, not a workshop.
So as I mentioned earlier, the program that I work with is the TRIO Educational Talent Search Program. And we are actually a program that works with middle school as well as high school students in applying to getting into college. And that means all aspects of the college application process, which includes connecting students to different opportunities. And so even though we're not a STEM focused program, we do try to build relationships with STEM organizations. So this summer we are working with Berkeley Lab to offer a data science and machine learning course. And so in general, we just really focus on exposure and building students' resumes to help them get to college. And so, you know, it's a cool program to just kind of get involved with different things that are going around.
All right. Well, Cosmos stands for the California State Summer School for Math and Science. It's a 25-year-old program running at 5 UC campuses simultaneously. So I'm at UC San Diego. It also runs at UCLA, UC Davis, UC Irvine, UC Santa Cruz. And we all offer wildly different areas of study. We call them clusters. And I can go ahead and name off some of our clusters, and I'll also drop the link for Cosmos in the chat. We've got computers in everyday life, climate change, biodiesel from renewable sources, photonics. We've got tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, music and technology, robot inventors, intro to autonomous vehicles, and several others. And students get to come and live on campus for 4 weeks, so it really kind of simulates the college experience for students. They're in classes and labs. They're in labs that our current college students have to wait until they're juniors and seniors to access because things are very impacted. Our students are in them as 10th, 11th graders. And then in the evening, they have programs with resident assistants, which are UC San Diego students who oversee the students in the evenings and provide great social programs. So it's a very fun, fast-paced program. Each cluster does a field trip into industry. And so you get to connect with a lot of different folks in industry. It's just a really wonderful opportunity for students. So I will drop the link to our program in the chat. And then hopefully, if you're interested, check it out. The application process starts in January and is open for a month. and it's extremely competitive. Just to put that out there, we received about 1,100 applications for 240 spots.
Thank you all so much for the work you do and for sharing with us. I know there are links being put in the chat. I know a lot of the students here are in California schools, and so we have a California audience. Would you mind sharing, like, how do you feel like the programs that you work with support students going on to 2- and 4-year institutions? Do you see a trend in where they might go in terms of the UCs or CSUs or other schools that are here in California? So anyone can start off with answering that question, and just how maybe your programs have been able to impact students moving on to higher education.
So I'm happy to start out and pick up where I left off. I think that biotechnology program and the ability of students to put on a resume that they have a publication in NCBI looks really good for a college application. I would say that many, if not most, of the students who have come through our workshops are very proactive in their career journey, and so very excited to try to get into a UC. And I think that when we go around the room in these workshops and say who's applying to a UC in the fall, almost everyone raises their hands. On the same note, the machining and manufacturing workshop is really a different path, and we try to expose those students to opportunities in our local community college that are a great gateway into that apprenticeship program at the lab. So we always try, even just for a one-day high school tour visit with a class, to talk about college, to talk about how the staff got involved into the laboratory, and there are many different entry points into the lab system. You all are getting an entry point in high school, but there's many different ways to join different labs, and it always looks good, I should just say, if you've done a program at one lab, to apply for a program in another lab. And so that topic comes up a lot, and I think these programs do help give exposure to students to pathways to college, and sharing staff's journeys is a big part of that.
I can go next. Well, as our program does, college applications are kind of the crux of what we do. We definitely have a lot of students who are very interested in both UC and UC school and CSU schools, and STEM majors are definitely becoming more popular with time. And I think that that's why we've really been highlighting the importance of getting involved for students and, participating in internships, research, things like that. And just, it's important in regards to exposure and really understanding, what you might want to major or not major in, because, doing things will help you realize what you like as well as what you don't like. But it really helps when you have a lot of students who are applying for the same major at the same school. It does help to show, your personal connection or a way for you to stand out. And so that's why that's the focus of our program. As the application process is getting more challenging every year. We've just been really focusing on opportunities and getting involved.
Yeah, so I think UC San Diego alone receives over 100,000 applications every year. A lot of the students are very bright and have great GPAs and things like that. So I think the admissions officers are really looking for what the student has done to set themselves apart. And Cosmos is considered a summer enrichment program, and at the UCs, the admissions teams know that Cosmos is very competitive, so it provides extra consideration if you can list that as something that you've attended on your UC application. I would say about 70 to 80% of our students come to a UC. The remainder are going to other great schools like MIT, Johns Hopkins, etc. So it's definitely important to try to set yourself apart as numbers continue to increase with, applications.
All right. I can say the same thing for Berkeley Lab. We definitely have competitive programs here. And so I think the UCs have definitely started to see our programs are much younger than 25 years, but about 5 or 6 years old. And so we've seen a number of students go on to the UCs, and they've spoken about the summer programs that they've been a part of. So all of it does go into, getting in or making themselves stand apart. Bhavani, you said a thing I always say, and that's these types of programs always help you to see what you love and what you don't love. And so we also want to, that's also super important as you are moving along, not necessarily to latch on to one singular thing so quickly, but also have experiences that show you maybe this thing is not for you, but you love certain pieces of it that you can move on with. So I love hearing that part. So definitely please check the link. I think everyone has put in links to their specific programs, and that's how you can find applications. Correct me if I'm wrong to the panelists. You all can find applications for all of the programs that were mentioned in the links that were put in the chat. So there was a person who asked a question of, and this may not be something that the group handles, but what are the chances of a high school intern being included on a published paper, or have you seen that in any of the work that you've done with high school students on your campuses and organizations? And I'll let anyone who has had experience with that speak up first.
I think that it has happened. I cannot think of a particular student, but because of there's often like cutting edge stuff that's happening in the labs, and if something is being discovered or if a process happens where a student has contributed, I believe that that has happened with Cosmos. I just can't think of an actual specific time. However, I know that our faculty really love having the students with them because students think differently. They are not afraid to try certain things that maybe faculty wouldn't have thought of, so they find it very refreshing to work with our students.
So right now, Lawrence Livermore doesn't have a high school internship program, but sort of to echo what Merritt said is that if you are in an internship program in a laboratory and you are part of something that gets published, I can only think of very long ago past opportunities, but where students get included. If you're working with a mentor and you're doing their work on their project, you're going to get included. But that said, if you're in a lab for 8 weeks, even if you do really great work for that mentor, it's not necessarily a guarantee that that work will be part of the larger concrete publication, but know that you have made always a valuable contribution, whether your project becomes successful and has publishable data, or you find that it's not the right road to go. A project that I started in graduate school was like the project that nobody could finish. And new graduate students got put on it to see if some new creative energy could get the solution, but it was just a very tough problem. And in the end, we didn't go down that path as my PhD research.
Definitely. I will say it is like not a normal thing for a high school student to be on a publication, but there are instances, we have had them in the past couple of years with our experiences in research students, and those are students who had the time to dedicate more time to collecting data or over the course of, say, a year, and not just in the 6 weeks. So also it does take a lot of time and patience. And so that doesn't always happen, and a mentor may not necessarily always have the time to support, keeping someone on. So that's just something to keep in mind. And definitely, I would say the experience is the biggest part, and students, especially so young at high school, should not focus necessarily on publications just yet. You have enough time to worry about all of that kind of stuff. But in thinking about applying to these types of programs, since there is a huge volume of applicants, what are some selection criteria that you all consider when you're thinking about bringing students into your programs? How are you making those decisions, and what advice would you give to a student who's applying to your program about what they might share in application? So I'll start with Bhavani and then go to Merritt and then Joanna.
Yes, so this actually doesn't pertain to our specific program because we, you know, take we take most students, but in regards to programs that we've helped students apply to, the biggest things that we've seen are as being important are GPA, of course, and then the classes that you have taken in the past, because a lot of time that shows the kinds of experiences you have, as well as volunteering experience if you've done any, and then essays. And sometimes programs have interviews too. So that's something to also, keep in mind. And something that I personally think are really important, whether you show that in essays or your resume or anything like that, is just showing the personal connection that you might have to, the program. Again, just when you have a limited number of spots and a lot of people are applying, it's just important to really show how you stand out. And so that personal connection is something we highlight in whenever we help students write essays too.
Yeah, so I think the Cosmos application was created to mimic the UC application in many ways. So it's a little bit of an education just filling out the app because there's so many pieces to it, and it'll just kind of inform you on how these processes work. There's a few parts. So there are some essays. They're limited to, I think, 250 words. They're not long. And then it's uploading your last 2 years of high school transcripts. So we do look at GPA. And then it's teacher recommendations. We ask for 2 teacher recommendations. And I would say the teacher recommendations are super important. We are really looking for students who are able to be independent and mature enough to handle a 4-week period away from home, living on campus, and we're trusting these students that come here. Our faculty do hand select our students to attend. They choose the 20 or so students who get to come and study with them and be in their cluster. So I know that the teacher recommendations and of course the GPA are highly important. But I often tell students when I'm speaking at local schools that GPA isn't everything either. They want to see heart, they want to see passion for their particular area of STEM. So that's where those essays come in, and you get a chance to really talk about why you want to be in this particular cluster and why it's so important to you.
So all those same parameters really apply to the programs that we offer as well as the lab. So I'm going to give a different answer is make sure you really read the instructions, read the materials, see what they're really asking for, and that you're appropriately addressing the program that you're applying for, and that you've double checked your work, and that you really sometimes we use multiple applications for multiple programs, and there's nothing like seeing a UC Cosmos name in the middle of your Lawrence Livermore application, and that has happened. And we all understand that you all apply cross programs, but it's that level of detail which speaks a lot to whether you're paying attention and engaged in what you're applying for. So on a more generic term, really apply for something that you want to be part of, and address what and why in your application.
Thank you all for all that good advice. Could I ask the question of, are you looking more for a list of things that people have done, or that students have taken on an opportunity and really given their all to a certain thing or a certain club? Or, if you had to look through a applicant that had done a ton of stuff, but it might have been like superficial or just, quick, I joined all the clubs. I joined every single sports team. I joined every single STEM club. And, maybe they were leadership in that, or I joined three, STEM clubs, but I'm the vice president and I raised this much money. Which one would you think you might want to, or might have a higher opportunity of getting into your program?
So
Merit. Oh, Joanna, go ahead and then Merit.
I was just going to say, I think most of our programs, the questions are really tailored not toward a laundry list. It's more toward what did you do that relates to the program that we are giving you an application for. And you can always add that in addition I did, but I think again, it's answering the question of why do I want to be in this program and why do I see the connection that makes me a good candidate? Because we all have very competitive programs, and it's very hard. There are a lot of great candidates, and we just don't have enough seats and bandwidth for everybody.
Definitely not the laundry list of things. That's you're looking, I think when you're reading through all these apps, you're really thinking about looking for students who have really delved in or are curious about something. And I think it's okay to even say, I honestly haven't learned enough yet, and I want to learn in these key areas. This is why, I want to come to Cosmos. And I think that the faculty reading that will be much more intrigued and interested than a laundry list.
Bhavani, thoughts?
I definitely agree. We definitely encourage students to use their freshman year of high school to maybe see what's out there and like think about what they might be interested in, but then, narrow it down to, your main interest, because it's also important to be able to give it your all into, whatever you're doing. And so if you're trying to do everything, it's hard to really get from even one thing.
Awesome. So to the group, this question of, are there, some conferences or other opportunities that you see throughout the year that are available to all students that you would recommend for anyone to take part in? I mean, we talk about the fact that we have this webinar is available for all students or anyone actually who wants to join. It's a public webinar. So are there any things that are public at your institutions that you think would be great for any student to join in? Joanna, I know you have your science on, so I'm thinking right now of your program, and then Bhavani and Merritt, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, Science on Saturday, every Saturday in the month of February at Las Positas College. And we typically do one or two at Tracy at the Grand Theater and one at Modesto at the State Theater of Modesto. So that's probably where we're out a lot during the year. That's what our program does.
We are actually a cohort-based program, so in order to attend any of our opportunities, we do have to apply. But as I said earlier, we don't have any, GPA requirements or anything like that to join. We do just focus on first gen and low income students. So as long as you have an application, you can come to all our stuff.
So I'm more familiar with summer programs rather than year-long programs, but if you do Google UC San Diego summer programs for high school students, you'll come to the UC San Diego Extension website, which I can drop in the chat, but that will give you a list of what we offer in the summer. As for year-round things, I would have to do a little bit more digging, but you may be able to find that information as well. So let me drop that here.
Here, I think you dropped it to us. You have to click to everyone.
Sorry about that.
No worries. It's
I can switch it.
a lot going on.
I would also offer that if you're really interested in visiting Livermore, you can tell your teacher during the school year to go on that same website and look for an on-site high school tour. That's managed through a teacher request. and we bring a class of students on to see different facilities and meet with staff. So we also have that opportunity.
Awesome. I'd say the same. It's more of schools within a 5 to 10 mile radius for us, and we directly reach out to the schools. But we do bring schools in Alameda and Contra Costa counties as well to visit throughout the year. And I also put a plug in for our Bay Area Teen Science. I think they do a great job of pulling together all the opportunities across the Bay Area that students can take part in, specifically if they're interested in science. And so that's another great resource to check out if you're interested in other opportunities and events throughout the year. So what if you are interested in a certain area of research or internship and don't necessarily have the experience required, especially as a high school student or an undergrad in undergrad, how would you recommend someone going about approaching, say, a laboratory or a researcher to get if you don't have that experience?
Something that we have done with students and actually worked for me personally when I was a student was just emailing. It's important to just send out those emails. You'll never know unless you ask them. And so, be prepared to get some no's, but all you need is one. And so every email is worth it.
I agree with that. I know our faculty do get hit with a lot of requests, and so you will get some no's. Like it's not even a a question, but you've got to persevere, and maybe you'll find somebody who's willing to connect with you.
So definitely don't take no as a final no. Joanna?
I was just going to say that I think it's very useful to read the postings at the laboratories. And as, let's say, a freshman or a sophomore in college, to see what are they looking for the job. All the national labs have summer interns, and we bring a lot of undergraduate and graduate students to the lab to help you build skills. So those postings will tell you what you need to be here for a summer. Nobody is really expecting an undergraduate student to be completely trained. That's part of why you come to the lab as an undergraduate, is to get that continued training, to see if you like the environment of the national lab, to get a sense of what you think your career path might be. And there's plenty of people who come for a summer internship at the laboratory and say, well, that was really fun, but I want to be an academic professor, or that was really great, I want to go work for Google, right? But it gives you an experience that every other experience will build upon. And sometimes you're getting experience that you don't even know will really shape your career. I had a minor in theater, and I think that really helped in my communication skills. And I think we forget that sometimes our writing, our reading, our communicating, our people skills really do help you stand out when you're in your internship. You have to work on your confidence. We all have things that we are better at, and we need to embrace those, and also embrace how we improve on the things that we think we're not as good at. So every experience builds on the next. And I just think that if you look around at those postings, it helps give you an idea of maybe a next class to take the next semester to make yourself a good candidate.
Thank you all for all of that. And I definitely do recommend looking for the postings, looking for the pages, the high school internships page, the undergraduate internships page before you jump out to the faculty member. Also, because, for our particular high school internship program, we ask that students don't reach out to mentors because we're collating a list of projects and who's going to mentor. So you don't have to do that search. And so that allows us to leave their inboxes a little less full, and for you to have a clear and transparent method in getting, and that's specifically for the experiences and research program here. But it does change as you go off to undergrad. You might have to reach out to that specific person, but definitely doing your due diligence of finding out where those places are is really important. Our almost final question for the day before I have you all wrap up things is, what advice would you give to students who want to sustain their relationship with mentors and or administrators from their program? So what advice would you give as students are wrapping up? How do they continue to maintain those relationships moving forward? I'll let you think, and then Merritt, I'll go with you first, and then Bhavani, and then Joanna.
So we do have a Cosmos newsletter that goes out to alums twice a year, and we request that our alums stay in touch with us and provide us with, any accomplishments that they have. We sometimes we spotlight folks every newsletter. We try to keep tabs on where folks end up going to college after Cosmos. And so, one way of just staying in touch is super easy by filling out the information that we ask for those newsletters. And then keeping in touch with the instructional team as appropriate. I think sometimes, our faculty are extraordinarily busy, so they're not going to be emailing or anything like that. But if there is an accomplishment that you have later related to that field, like you went on and entered in your project in a competition and won, they definitely want to know about that. So it's not being afraid to share, related successes after the program.
I think I would really highlight the importance of vocalizing, your interest in, let's say if you're working with a faculty member or a PI or someone like that who, is doing research that you're planning on pursuing later on or you want to pursue later on. I feel like it's just, and you have a chance to talk to them about it either, even especially during the program, I think it's just important to really use those times to share more about your interests and your plans and kind of build a connection through that. And I agree. I mean, I also agree that sometimes it's not always possible to consistently have an email relationship like that. But having those kinds of conversations when you are actually with them, working with them, that will really help with the check-ins that maybe you will send over post-program. And so I just want to highlight the work that it's important to do during, which will help with after.
So it seems that what's very popular for students in our programs is to connect with our staff through LinkedIn. And this keeps it on a very professional level and also allows less of a time dependent response. I think if you're sort of chatting in LinkedIn, it feels a little less urgent than when something comes into a staff member's email box. And it's also a way to start building your professional network by using that professional system and remembering to keep things on a professional level. Your mentor is not necessarily your friend. They are a guide on your journey. And so you want to keep that respectful and professional in all the areas of your communication. So.
Thank you all so much for your time today. I wanted to leave the last words to you all for anything that's popped up in your mind that we may not have covered today, or just last advice to the audience here about making the most of their summer opportunity. So just thoughts you may have to leave them on. Joanna, I'll start with you, then Bhavani, and then Merritt will finish with you and your advice.
So I think just remember to do your best, keep open communication with those in your program and that are mentoring you, and try to have a good time and learn new things, be curious, ask questions, and enjoy.
I think that sums it up best, but I would just say, really be open to new possibilities. You really don't know what you might actually end up doing. And so just give yourself the space to explore. I think it's a really important time to be doing that.
I guess I would just say, don't be discouraged if you apply to Cosmos and you're not accepted your first year or even your second year. It is very, very competitive. There's so many great students applying, and it's not a indication about anything about you. So just continue to persevere, even if you experience some, setbacks or experience some things where you get told no, that's okay. Just keep trying, keep persevering. The right opportunity will work out for you.
All right. I love that last info of, definitely we are going to get some no's, but we will get eventually a yes if we keep persevering, and it has nothing to do with anything about us. It's just the right time, right place, for the most part for any of our placements, in these different programs that we're a part of. So I want to thank the panelists again for your time today and sharing your advice. And I hope the students in our audience members got a lot out of this discussion today. And hopefully, for those who are not a part of the Berkeley Lab programs and are part of our general public, will join us for the next couple of Fridays when we discuss research topics and areas across the laboratory and across research in the Bay Area. So thank you all for today and have a great weekend.